Trump is closer to normal than what we're seeing on the left.
Yeah, I was talking about why he won the election.
So?
When I made that statement, I was talking about that was before the election.
Let me take you back to a moment that unfolded in the immediate aftermath of the election, a time when I found myself reflecting on why Donald Trump emerged victorious. I had said something along the lines of, Trump is closer to normal than what we're seeing on the left. It wasn't a prediction I made before the election, but rather an observation I shared once the dust had settled. My point was simple. Voters gravitated toward him because they perceived him as more grounded, more relatable than the rhetoric coming from the Democrats. That's what I meant at that specific moment in time, nothing more, nothing less. People saw in Trump a kind of normalcy, a contrast to what they felt was an increasingly disconnected message from the left. And that, I argued, was a key reason he won. Now let's shift gears to a different scene, one that played out on the set of Asterisk, The View Asterisk, where a routine discussion spiraled into something far more explosive. Stephen A. Smith, a man known for his sharp tongue and sharper mind, found himself squaring off against Sunny Hostin. What started as a casual debate quickly escalated into a heated exchange that left the panel and the audience stunned. It was classic Stephen A. doing what he does best, dismantling arguments with precision and leaving his opponent scrambling. This time, Sunny was the one caught in his crosshairs, and by the end of it, she was struggling to hold her ground. The conversation began innocently enough. The panel had gathered around their usual table, diving into one of their signature hot topics, likely something tied to the election or a broader political issue that had everyone buzzing. Sunny, as she often does, came out swinging. She had her argument locked and loaded, built on what she saw as irrefutable facts. Her perspective was clear, her delivery confident, and for a brief moment, it seemed like she had the upper hand. The rest of the panel nodded along, caught up in the momentum of her words. But across the table sat Stephen A. Smith, silent and still. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react. He just listened, taking in every syllable she offered. And if you know anything about Stephen, you know that silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's a signal he's gearing up to strike. Sunny's argument leaned heavily on emotion, peppered with generalizations she presented as gospel. She was in her element, dominating the conversation as she often does. But Stephen wasn't there to play along. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't raise his voice or lose his cool. Instead, he did what he's mastered over years of commentary. He brought facts, cold, hard, undeniable facts. He started by questioning the foundation of Sunny's position, poking holes in her reasoning with surgical precision. Where she had relied on passion, he countered with statistics, historical context, and real-world examples that flipped her narrative on its head. The panel, once nodding in agreement with Sunny, fell silent. You could almost feel the shift in the room as they realized this wasn't going to be a one-sided affair. Stephen's approach was methodical. He didn't just challenge her, he dismantled her. Black men, we revere women, he said at one point, weaving in a broader point about leadership and perception. We don't have any problem looking at a woman as a leader. It was a subtle jab, but it landed. He wasn't there to yell or grandstand. He was there to prove a point. And as he laid out his case, Sunny began to squirm. She had come in so sure of herself, so convinced her stance was bulletproof, but now she was facing a pushback she hadn't anticipated. She tried to interject, to steer the conversation back to her comfort zone, but Stephen wasn't having it. You had your time to speak, he reminded her firmly. Now it's mine. The rest of the panel watched as the dynamic flipped. Sunny, once in control, was now on the defensive. The numbers came next. Stephen pointed to the election results, 49.8% to 48.3%. A razor-thin margin, sure, but a loss nonetheless. If you're the Democratic Party and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, he said, that's an excuse to say, what we did really wasn't that bad. We should keep doing it. It was a stinging critique, not just of Sunny's argument, but of the broader mindset he saw at play. Sunny tried to counter, but her responses grew shaky. She interrupted again, her voice rising as she attempted to drown him out. It was a classic move. When the facts aren't on your side, you get loud. But Stephen stayed calm, letting her dig her own hole. That's when Sunny made her fatal misstep. Unable to win on logic, she pivoted to emotion. Her interruptions grew more frequent, her tone more frantic. She wasn't debating anymore, she was deflecting. At one point, she veered into personal attacks, questioning Steven's credibility, implying he was just chasing attention. But Steven had seen this playbook before. He didn't flinch. He didn't bite. He just waited. When someone runs out of substance, they turn to noise, and Sunny was making a lot of it. She doubled down, ranting about feelings and tangents that had little to do with the original point. It was clear she wasn't trying to win, she was trying to survive. Then came the moment that sealed it. Steven let her finish her tirade, waited for her to catch her breath, and leaned forward. Looking her dead in the eye, he said, "Sunny, you can keep raising your voice, but that doesn't make you right." The studio went quiet. You could hear the air settle. Sunny had nothing left to say. She mumbled a weak comeback about how this isn't about numbers, it's about feelings, but it was too late. The damage was done. Steven leaned back, letting the silence speak for itself. The debate was over, and everyone knew it. The rest of the panel didn't rush to Sunny's rescue. Joy Behar looked away, avoiding the wreckage. Whoopi Goldberg shifted uncomfortably, as if weighing whether to intervene. The others just sat there, spectators to a masterclass in debate. Steven hadn't just won, he'd left Sunny with nowhere to go. And that's his gift. He doesn't just beat you, he exposes you. "You're never going to convince the ladies of the View asterisk," he said later, broadening his point. They had a chance to stand up for women's sports last week, they didn't. They had a chance to prioritize the safety of Americans over the rights of illegals, they didn't. That's your party, and it's been radicalized. It was a parting shot that tied his argument back to the bigger picture. The internet erupted as soon as the clip hit the airwaves. People couldn't get enough of it. Stephen A. Smith just gave Sunny Hostin a free lesson on how facts work. One Twitter user wrote, "Hope she was taking notes." Another chimed in, "Sunny learned what happens when you try to argue with a man who deals in facts." The comments weren't just about Steven's victory, though. They were about the View asterisk itself. Viewers pointed out the hypocrisy they saw in the show's dynamic. When Whoopi or Joy speak, they get uninterrupted airtime to push their views. But when someone like Steven brings a counterpoint backed by data, they're cut off or dismissed. They invited Steven on, but they weren't ready for a real debate, one user noted. They're used to controlling the narrative, and he flipped the script. It wasn't just random commenters piling on either. Big names joined the fray. A well-known sports commentator tweeted, "Sunny just got schooled," and Steven didn't even break a sweat. Others took it further, calling out the View asterisk for its one-sided reputation. If you can't handle different opinions, why invite someone like Steven? One viewer asked, "This is why no one takes the show seriously anymore." The criticism wasn't new, but this moment crystallized it. People were tired of the echo chamber, and Steven's takedown became a symbol of that frustration. At its core, this wasn't about personalities, it was about facts versus feelings. Sunny came with passion, but Steven came with receipts. And when the dust settled, only one of them was left standing. It was a reminder of what happens when you step into a debate unprepared. You don't just lose, you get exposed. Sunny's unraveling wasn't pretty, but it was telling. She started strong, faltered under pressure, and resorted to tactics that only dug her deeper. Steven, meanwhile, stayed steady, letting the strength of his argument do the work. So what's the takeaway? If you're going to face off with Stephen A. Smith, you'd better bring your A game or you'll end up like Sunny, speechless and scrambling on live TV. This moment laid bare more than just one person's weak spots. It highlighted the cracks in how the View asterisk operates. People crave real discussion, not scripted talking points, and Steven delivered exactly that. The question now is whether the show will lean into more voices like his or double down on the usual lineup. I'd argue they need the challenge. Moments like this prove it. But I'm curious what you think. Did Steven go too far, or was he just speaking truth? Should the View asterisk mix it up with more heavy hitters, or stick to their comfort zone? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear where you land on this. And if you're into breakdowns like this, stick around. There's plenty more where that came from.